This is the New American Media. Broadcasting to you live from the Milky Way galaxy, the solar system, planet Earth, North America, California, Los Angeles to be specific. If you're in the NSA, I'm sure you can get much more specific than that, but that's where we're going to leave it for now. Welcome to Agree to Disagree. My name's Brian Engelman, here on the TNAM radio network, here at thenewamericanmedia.com. Welcome and thank you for joining us. Special thanks to Brandon Odell, who was talking some NFL football action in our previous segment. Thank you very much. You can check out all the archived shows. They're put up there on thenewamericanmedia.com. Do us a quick favor. Go on youtube.com/thenewamericanmedia. Subscribe to our channel. All of our archived shows from the past 2.5 years are up there. Search The New American Media on Facebook and like our page. And, of course, go on Twitter and find us. We are at American_media_. And that's the way we can stay connected 24 hours a day, not just when radio shows are put together. So today on Agree to Disagree, this is a place where we can pretty much talk about everything you're not supposed to talk about inside of the bar. Oh, you know, religion and politics and creepiness and all of that conspiratorial stuff where, you know, the asleep ostrich folk like to either pretend it's not happening or don't want to think about it or they're just not informed. That's what we get into here. And today we are joined with a special guest, Miss Katherine Albrecht. Dr. Katherine Albrecht is an advocate for consumer privacy, a public speaker, a tech expert, author of 6 books and videos, and a daily syndicated radio host on the GCN radio network. Katherine, welcome to the program. How are you doing today?
Hey, Brian. I'm doing great. It's good to be on your show.
Hey, it's good to have you. We've heard you on different outlets. We've seen you around doing what you do, and I just got to say we're fans because this whole Fourth Amendment violation, it's so blatant to me in our Constitution. This is one of the basic things 230-something years ago. They said, don't do that. You can't just shake everybody down and you're guilty until proven innocent. And our world has just been turned upside down, and it feels like we're the crazy ones. So it's nice to finally meet you, not quite in person, but on the radio. And I just want to give you a second to kind of introduce yourself, tell everybody how they can find you, stay connected with you, and then we can get into some of the meat of, the topics that are in the news today, shall we say.
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you this, Brian. In 14 years of working on radio topics, I've never been as optimistic as I am now. And this has to do with the privacy issues that we've been tackling long before there was any awareness of privacy at all, long before there even was a Facebook. I was out there trying to say, hey, guys, wake up. There's a real privacy problem with all these databases. So after 14 years of what really does feel like shouting into the wind, Edward Snowden has turned this whole thing around for us. I started back in 1999 as kind of an armchair activist. I was a graduate student at Harvard. I was working on a doctorate in human development and psychology, totally on a different track. I was not doing consumer privacy stuff. I was doing education stuff, but more like on this brand new thing called the Internet. And then one thing led to another. My local supermarket, Safeway in California, wound up getting a frequent shopper card, you know, the Safeway card.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. So you know the one I'm talking about. I'm actually originally from LA, so you're in my neck of the woods. And when Safeway got the frequent shopper card back in the 90s, I thought something's not right about this because in the past, you know, they kept saying, "Oh, you know, get our card, sign up for the rewards card and get better prices, get discounts, get sales." And I thought, well, I could already get sales without your dumb card. Why do I need that? So as I began to do some research, and I actually have an undergraduate degree in marketing in the from the early 90s, and looking into this whole concept of, you know, what exactly do these guys stand to gain by making us scan these numbered cards. And what I found as I actually began to do a little bit of research into this was that the purpose of the card was not to get you a reward or to somehow encourage you to shop at the store. The purpose of the card was it was the very first time that retail stores, and particularly food stores, were linking people up with their purchases and storing all of their purchases in a longitudinal record over time. So prior to about the mid-1990s, Safeway was one of the first stores ever to do this. Prior to that, there really was no way for the store to keep track of who you were or what you had purchased or whether you were valuable or not valuable. And when they hit on this idea, hey, we've got these amazing databases, we've got this really convenient thing called a barcode, why don't we stick one of those on every customer? And, if you think about what the retail stores are and what grocery stores and Walmart, which is now the world's largest retailer, are all about, they really revolutionized this idea of making physical objects visible to computers. Back in 1984, actually the barcode was invented long before that, but it wasn't until 1984, of all prophetic years, that Walmart issued a mandate to its top suppliers and said, you're going to have to use this new thing called a barcode, and you're going to have to put it on all of the products that you sell in our store. And if you don't, then we'll just stop carrying your products and we'll go to a competitor. And so single-handedly, within a period of just 1 year, in 1984, Walmart drove the adoption almost universally of this thing we now know of as the barcode. It's almost hard to imagine a world without barcodes.
You're right.
But prior to 1984, things had price tags with stickers. They actually stuck a sticker with a number on the sticker. Or if you go back even further to the 1970s, when I was a little girl, they actually had these purple ink things, and they would actually ink an actual purple, stamp on things. You had to use bleach to get it off. Excuse me, I'm trying to keep my voice here. But in 1984, what Walmart really revolutionized was this notion that now these machines, these computers, which still we didn't have them in our homes yet, and we certainly didn't have them in our back pockets or in our cars, but they were starting to show up in various places, and at the supermarkets were some of the first places to adopt it. So now you have this way for physical objects to be seen and recorded, turned into numbers and seen and recorded by computers in their language. So that went on for about 10, 15 years. And then the stores started getting greedy for more data, and they said, okay, well, we did a great job now knowing every single object that's sold out of our store, but now we want to know who's buying all these things.
Let me pause right there, Katherine. Let me pause right there, because as we make that transition, there was a good side to it. It kind of makes sense to have a more accurate representation of what the actual prices are, speed things up, efficiency, checking in warehouses, making sure that there isn't that. It is a good system in theory, is how we start this, but then it starts to go into stage 2, which is getting all the personal information, because a lot of people say, oh, well, if I'm not doing anything wrong, I have nothing to worry about. Oh, well, what could they possibly gather from my info? I'm just going grocery shopping. But now, like you're saying, it makes the transition from tracking the physical objects through their computer database into learning about tendencies and habits. So pick it up from there. I just kind of wanted to because it makes sense, but then I've always been creeped out by it myself. I've always seen the writing on the wall as well.
Yeah, so I kind of want to get into some of that of sort of how this has all progressed, and you can talk to various people who work on other parts of this sort of privacy issue, and I'm sure they'll have a very different trajectory of how A led to B, led to C, led to where we are today. But for me, my background really was looking at retail and marketing, and how it was that these retail stores really drove this computerization and numbering of human beings, which has now led to a whole host of new things coming up. So think about it. If you're a grocery store and we went from the early part of the 20th century, we didn't even have grocery stores in the 1800s. There were just local mercantiles and local, like Little House on the Prairie kind of
legitimate farmers markets. I'm a farmer. I'm selling some stuff right here.
Yes, there was that, and then, if you wanted to buy nails or you wanted to buy cloth or you wanted to buy whatever, there was, 1 or 2 places in town that would have that, and they would wait for the train to come in to deliver it, or the wagon to come in, even prior to that. And then in the 1900s, especially in the big cities in New York and Chicago, in places where there were large numbers of people, then they actually began to create this sort of a new concept of a grocery store, and that was in the early 1900s. And those were typically run, they didn't have these big multinational chains. They were typically family-run, family-owned. You might have 1, you might have 2, you might have, as many as 10. But that was the case up until, I'd say, probably the middle part of the 20th century. And then they began to consolidate, and you started seeing these national chains. They became corporations. They started to much more resemble the supermarkets that we know of today. And those supermarkets because of the increasing sort of scale of what they were trying to accomplish there, how much stuff they were moving around. And supermarkets are kind of an interesting case because you've got such a perishable commodity. You know, you put some hamburger in the case and it's only going to be good for 4 or 5 days. You know, it's not, you can't just forget that you have it. You have to constantly be keeping track of your inventory. And so for that reason, I think that the barcode was a very popular concept because, you know, unlike a car dealership where you might sell 10 cars a week, you're selling thousands and thousands of individual items, sometimes even on a daily basis. And so the barcode really helped people out. There you go, bing, bing, bing.
Well, Katherine, that's another, you're talking about a car dealership, and I use the analogy in the gun control debate often with cars. I say a car is not a good or an evil object. It can take you to a destination. It can be used for leisure, or you can run somebody over on the sidewalk and commit homicide with it. It's just it's neither good nor bad. It's just a tool. A gun is neither good nor bad. It depends on the intent of the person whose hand it's in. And when we talk about barcodes, it's an inanimate thing. It does what it does. It's only in the hands of the power control, the greedy, manipulative, you know, sociopaths that really want to dominate and control the world, where you got to fear the technology, or at least step back and say, is this making sense, or should we be cautious about this? So anyway, I just want to toss that back at you.
And I've actually come to a little different place on that because I used to hold that set of views. And by the way, I'm a big believer in all of the rights in the Bill of Rights, including the First Amendment, which lets us have this conversation, and the Second Amendment, which you know, lets us keep someone else from trying to stop us from having this conversation illegally, and of course the Fourth Amendment that keeps us safe from you know, people unnecessarily, without any kind of warrant or suspicion, going through our stuff, and that's the whole privacy thing we're going to be talking about. But I actually have come to a place after 14 years of really philosophically, deeply thinking about these things, where I actually do believe that technologies have almost a spirit to them, a soul, a direction, a tendency. For example, if you're creating Zyklon B, and you're putting it into, you know, if you're creating gas chambers, there's a tendency for those gas chambers and that Zyklon B to be abused. The same is true, I think, for other technologies. I think some lend themselves to that more than others. In the case of guns, clearly the purpose of a gun is to either frighten someone or to kill someone, and there's times that it's appropriate to do both. So I'm not opposed to that. In the case of tracking people, I think it gets a little harder to make that argument because inevitably throughout all time, you can look through all of history and find that whenever it became easy and efficient to track and observe and control people, that almost always leads to trouble. So I actually believe that tracking and controlling technologies for use on human beings pretty much fundamentally are just bad. So we can argue that a little bit, but I think I need to make kind of the bigger case and bring us.
No. I think we're on the same page, because when it turns when the puppet masters, if you will, turn the technology of tracking boxes in a warehouse into tracking humans, and will there be RFID implants in Obamacare? If you don't have a credit card and we go to a cashless society, can you barter? Can you buy or sell things? I've read in the Bible, people have told me, don't do that. Be careful. And to me, that's common sense. Whether you like the Bible, care about the Bible, think it's a work of fiction, or you pray and go to church every week, doesn't matter to me. It just seems like a creepy idea for anybody to have that much information on you. That's just creepy to me.
Exactly.
I wouldn't want my neighbor to have that on me.
Yeah, exactly. And frankly, to be honest, it would probably be, you know, I'd almost rather have like a human being flying in a passing airplane able to look in my skylight and see me than to have a cold, heartless computer storing information indefinitely that will never be deleted, because that person in the airplane is going to forget about me in an hour, and that's the end of that. But the computer never forgets you. So back to this whole thing about barcodes. We have the barcodes to enable machines, and this is really revolutionary. I've never heard anybody actually stop and talk about this or stop and think about it. It's not even something I talk about very often. But what the barcode did was it made physical objects, it reduced physical objects into numbers. And prior to that, they really weren't. You know, I mean, I suppose you could kind of number things, but truly to be able to have a machine see the world around it, it's almost like a two-piece. Number one, it reduces physical objects into nothing more than numbers, so it's extremely objectifying. And on the other side, it's extremely empowering to the machine world, because it enables the machine world now no longer to be solely dependent on what we tell it, but it enables the machine world to begin seeing the world around itself. And there are many people, if you talk to Ray Kurzweil or the transhumanists, there are many, many people who actually look forward to the day when these machines will truly become sentient, where they actually will be looking around and seeing stuff and making decisions. And we're coming to that point in some ways. So if we get back to this idea of the barcode, it makes sense that it would be in the retail environment, as it were, that would be the very first place that it would occur to anyone to make people into numbers that can also be seen by the machine. And that was how we wound up with the frequent shopper card. The idea was, well, wait a minute, I've got a barcode on this tube of Crest toothpaste. Why don't I have a barcode on Katherine Albrecht, who's standing there paying for the tube of Crest toothpaste? And then if I can barcode her and barcode it, then I can link them both together in this database, and what can I do with that? So we actually wound up with those frequent shopper cards, and it was really interesting. I actually wrote a lengthy article, which if people want to look this up online, don't Google it, but you can start page it, and we'll talk about Start Page 2 today.
I use it, by the way.
Startpage.com. It's the private search engine that we use instead of Google. I helped create it. It's totally private. But if you start page, my name, Katherine Albrecht, supermarket card report, it's actually through the Denver University Law Review. I know that's a lot to remember, but it's actually called Supermarket Cards, Tip of the Retail Surveillance Iceberg. And I wound up doing my doctoral dissertation on supermarket cards and the privacy implications and why people didn't seem to understand what they were really for and what kind of information was being collected about them. But in that article, which you can find online, just look up, surveillance iceberg in my name, then you can see how when these cards were first introduced, the marketing people, and my undergraduate degree is in marketing, so I resemble this remark, I suppose, but the marketing people are constantly looking to know as much as they possibly can about the psychology of the people to whom they're pitching their ideas and their products. And so they wanted to be able to get this information and know that Katherine Albrecht bought Crest for 6 years, and then all of a sudden she started buying Tom's of Maine, and what the heck happened to Katherine? And that corresponded with her no longer drinking Diet Coke, and now all of a sudden
that would mean you're waking up, Katherine. That means you're waking up. You're becoming dangerous. You're avoiding the fluoride. You're getting rid of the aspartame.
Well, exactly.
You're potentially dangerous.
It's incredible what they know. And when I actually started diving into the research of these marketing people through the supermarkets, what they did with the cards, it was shocking to me. They can actually tell, you're in Los Angeles, so you can relate to this, they were boasting that they can tell if someone is a recent immigrant, and specifically the South American or Central American country that they're from, or even the region of Mexico that they're from, on the basis of simply what they purchase. So if you buy, Pan Bimbo, and you buy a certain flavor of grape soda, and you combine it with, jalapeno peppers and a certain blah, 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 then they can pinpoint where you're from.
If you shop on aisle 13.
They boast about. Yes. So they also boast that they can, and some of this is obvious, like they know if you have kids, they know how old your kids are because they know when you stopped buying diapers or started buying baby formula or Gerber, strained peas, and they know if you've got a cat or a dog, they know if you have dandruff because of the products that you buy, they know if you have diabetes. They follow all those sorts of things. And what then began to happen over time, and this was where I came onto the scene because I was not an activist back when the barcode and the shopper cards, kind of when the shopper cards were coming in, but they were already there by the time I started protesting them. In 2003, I was researching these shopper cards, and I came across a quote by a guy from AC Nielsen. This is the market research company. And he said, first there were barcodes that did a great job telling us what was being sold, and we know that. And then along came the frequent shopper card, which told us who was buying it, and we know that. He said, but now what we really want to know is we've got this blind spot, and it's so annoying. The blind spot is we don't know what people do with the products after they take them out of the store. And we want to know what you do with the product in your bathroom, in your kitchen, in your car, in your home, in your office. And so there's a new technology that's going to let us know even that. And that technology is RFID, radio frequency ID microchips. And so in 2003, I discovered that right down the street from Harvard, where I was getting my doctorate, that at MIT they had put together Procter & Gamble and Walmart and 500 other major corporations had been meeting behind closed doors without the public's knowledge to put together a plan to replace the barcode secretly with implantable microchips hooked up to miniature antennas that could transmit this information wirelessly, silently, and secretly at a distance. And it sounds like science fiction. If I didn't know better, I would think this is like crazy conspiracy theory. But if people don't believe it, please read our book Spy Chips, because it has over 300 footnotes. We document every single bit of this down to the last. Lots of people didn't like Spy Chips, but nobody ever criticized our research because it was airtight. My co-author, by the way, writing Spy Chips with me was Liz McIntyre, who was a former federal bank examiner. So you take a Harvard doctoral researcher and a federal bank examiner, and you sick us on a project like this, and we really dug up a lot of stuff.
Well, Katherine, I've seen the movies 1984. I've seen Terminator. I've seen The Matrix. I don't view this stuff as ridiculous. Who would have ever thought the TVs were watching you? And what are they rolling out now? The smart TVs and the DVRs that are watching you. I mean, you don't have to pretend that it's happening. It's happening, and we're paying for the service. So.
Exactly. Yeah, we are. And as this gets built up around us, it's really interesting because I did my first protest against supermarket frequent shopper cards back in 1999. And it was probably 6 years later that I was talking to a teenager. And she said, well, Katherine, I think it's really great you're out there protesting and you're out there defending our liberties and stuff, but I just have one question for you. If you win and they get rid of the supermarket cards, how's the store going to know what you bought? And I just went, oh, my gosh. And I realized that this young woman, 15 years old, had never been in a store at a time when there wasn't a card. And so she, wow. The best definition of technology is stuff that was invented after you were a grown-up,
Oh, I love that. Once a year they do that. I forget what college it is, but they say if you're graduating from high school today, your world has always had digital TV, whatever it is, whatever the technology is, and that's always mind-blowing to think about. But
it is. Like, when was the last time you and I sat down and went, I really wonder if this telephone thing is a good idea or not? Or gee, I really wonder if these things called cars, like, is that a good idea or not a good idea? It's like once it becomes ubiquitous and you grow up with it, you don't even think to question it. And technology, I think, is uniquely that way. I think culture and politics are that way to some extent, but I've never seen a technology reversed. I have seen cultural things reversed. You can look at, segregation in the 1950s. You can look at, women's liberation. You can look at a lot of things where culture absolutely revolutionary, overturned what you had grown up with if you were in that era. I've never seen that happen with technology. Technology only moves forward. It's almost like a ratchet that can't go back. Those parking things with the do not back up little teeth out.
Yeah, they'll blow out your tires.
Once you go over it, there's no going back. So we're never going to get rid of phones, unless we hit some kind of dark ages or some EMP pulse wipes them all out, or we get sunspots. This stuff's not going away. And this is why I think it's so important that we look at the technologies that we're adopting today, because once we adopt them, even if we argue about it, us and whoever's adopting them for 10 years, by the time the 10 years go by, even if the argument and the debate is still flaming, the 15-year-old is going to look at you and go, well, it's really great that you're arguing. I hope you win, but then how are we going to blah, blah, blah? How are we going to get the microchips into your arm if we,
Well, Katherine, this is a good point for me to bring this up, because you led the show saying I've never been as optimistic as I am now. I wanted to share this with you. One of the messages I got from Ted Distel, he's the web designer for thenewamericanmedia.com. He sent me something very recently, and I wanted to share it with you because it's the perfect time to do so. He says, hey, Brian, thought you might be interested to know that Albertsons isn't doing the customer card thing anymore. No more purchase tracking. Interesting. And I respond, wow.
Yeah, we won that one.
Why?
That
and
was
he said
my
new
first
owners.
protest ever was actually Albertsons when they got their card. We did a protest in Dallas, Texas in 2002 when they first introduced the card. And it was just 2 months ago that they got rid of the card. In fact, not just Albertsons, but all of the stores that they own, which you won't know being in California, but listeners might know elsewhere in the country. That includes Osco, Jewel Drugs. It includes Acme Supermarkets, and there's one other one. But, yeah, Albertsons is the biggie. And they did. They've had some interesting ownership shifts. They actually split into two different companies.
Okay.
One wanted cards and one didn't. Blah blah blah. Anyway, the good news is they're gone. So we absolutely succeeded on that, and I was really delighted that 15 years worth of effort,
good work,
or at least 11 years worth of effort have come to fruition. We've had a lot of successes. So let me give you one as we're talking about technology not being able to ratchet backwards. The best analogy I can think of for new technologies, if you see something coming and it's really bad, you have to stamp it out while it's small. And, I'll give you an example. I was driving in my car, and I looked out the window. I was stopped at a light, and somebody had thrown a cigarette out, and it was smoldering on the ground. And I had that thought, like probably anybody would have, of, should I get out? Should I pull around the block and try to park and come over and step on that? Nah, what the heck? It'll just burn out. And I drove away, and I went shopping, and when I came out of the store, there were fire trucks all up and down the street. They blocked off the entire main street of Nashua, New Hampshire. And what I later found out had happened was that little cigarette butt had burned into some brush, and then it had burned up a transformer, and it had taken out the power for the whole street. So it took them, 2 or 3 hours to block off the street with this huge conflagration and no power. And so how much money was lost, how much man hours of working time on the entire main street of a major city in New Hampshire. So I could have stopped that if I'd just gotten out of my car and stepped on that stupid cigarette, or had the person just not thrown it in the first place. So what I've come to understand about technology is when you see it, you must fight it while it's small. If let's say telephones were some horrible evil, well, the time to have dealt with that would have been way back when Alexander Graham Bell was first screwing around with them, right? Not now, because you can't get rid of them. So let me give you an example of where we did that successfully. Back in 2007, the microchip implants, this is the Verichip or the Digital Angel Corporation or Applied Digital Solutions. They've had 5 different names because they're a shell game. But they were putting microchips into people in earnest. It was not just a little, experimental thing. They were seriously putting them in people. Blue Cross Blue Shield had a trial where they were implanting these into diabetic patients. The Alzheimer's Care Center down in West Palm Beach, Florida, was putting them into 200 Alzheimer's patients.
I've heard it about the Alzheimer's patients, the people that can wander off and disappear, but put it in the shoes or something.
Well, no, let me clarify on at least state-of-the-art RFID implant technology now. It's a tiny microchip encapsulated in glass. It's about the size, it's between a grain of rice and a Tic Tac.
Okay.
You can't get it in you accidentally. They have to numb the area. It's a major injection because it's a big honking thing you're putting in your flesh.
Yeah.
So, I know a lot of people get nervous. Ooh, could I get one by mistake with my vaccine? No. The thing about them, though, they're the identical technology, and I mean identical to what they put in dogs and cats, the Home Again chip that they do at the Humane Society.
Right.
The only difference is the human one has 16 bits in the ID code, and the animal one has 10 bits. So that's the only difference. But putting that all to the side, when you put this into a person or an animal, you cannot track it from a satellite. Even though you might see that, Tom Cruise doing it in the movies, you cannot track it from a satellite because it doesn't have a power source. So it's not a GPS. It does not send out any kind of tracking signal. The only way it works is it's basically an internal barcode. You can take a reader device and put it over a person's flesh, and you get back a 16-digit. I'm sorry, did I say 16-bit? I meant 16-digit ID number. So that's all it is, and you have to get within about 6 inches of the person to even get that signal back. So they're not tracking devices. That would be the wrong phrase.
Okay.
They're really they're really internal barcodes or implantable barcodes.
So the things that they're slapping.
So back into,
I'm sorry. I was just going to say the things that some of the police are slapping on vehicles and it had to go to the Supreme Court. Where are they just able to put a tracking device? We're talking
totally
different technology.
Because there you're talking about a thing about the size of a pack of cigarettes that's got
with a
battery on it and an antenna, and it's got power. So it is sending a signal out that can then be tracked. But the things that they put in the human body, you could conceivably, and in fact, they've come up with these, you could conceivably put a larger device like the size of a pacemaker into a person and track them with that. So it is possible to put a GPS tracking device inside of a person, but there's some serious reasons why you wouldn't do that. Number one, what we discovered is that any implanted device in the body has the tendency to cause cancer. And that's not surprising because the body doesn't like foreign objects in it.
Right.
And when you put something in the body, whether it's a pacemaker, whether it's an implanted GPS device, a microchip, whatever it is, even a piece of shrapnel or a piece of glass, the body will form a protective capsule around it. And the process of forming that capsule sometimes goes wrong. And when it goes wrong, it goes really wrong, and it leads to a fast-growing malignant tumor, or a cancer, all different kinds of cancers. And they're very deadly. They're very dangerous cancers. So in the case of these microchips, when they were embedding these into people, the company's stock was trading at nearly $12 a share. I mean, they were doing great. It was like the future of everything. You had the president of Colombia offering to microchip implant Colombian guest workers before they came to the U.S. I mean, this was like serious stuff. You had the Attorney General of Mexico implanting his staff. You had a place called City Watcher up in Chicago implanting their staff. It was like, hi, this is coming. So when I looked at that, I really saw just like that cigarette smoldering by the side of the road. Well, this isn't really going to go anywhere. And then I went, no, it is. It's going to wind up, doing exactly what that
somebody else will take care of it.
The city.
Yeah, someone else will take care of it.
You do that, right?
Sure.
You do. People do. And I made the decision that I was going to stop that. So it took about a year and a half of my life. You can read the saga of both of these websites, antichips.com and chipmenot.com. We did a prayer vigil, we did a march, we did all kinds of media outreach, but the real kicker came when I discovered that these implants caused cancer.
Right.
And the FDA had approved them in 2005 for use in human beings without even bothering to check the literature to discover that they were causing cancer. So the FDA was completely complicit in this. The head of the FDA at that time was Tommy Thompson, who later went to be on the board of directors for the Verichip Implant Company. So talk about corruption and revolving doors and double dealing. And when we came out with that story, I worked for 6 months with the Associated Press. I kind of am. I feel a special kindredship with Edward Snowden, working with Glenn Greenwald for 6 months on his NSA story, because we kind of did the same thing with the AP. And when the story of those cancers broke, all of those trials quietly went away. They took all the chips out of the Blue Cross Blue Shield patients' arms. They removed all the chips in the Alzheimer's patients. They quietly stopped everything that they were doing. And the company's stock value went down to 15 cents a share or some crazy nothing. And the company all but dried up and blew away. So I say that because I want to encourage people that when you see something coming, like I will say, we were talking about the neutrality of technologies like cars and guns. There is no neutrality about a microchip implant that tracks people. There just isn't. There is no, even if you can find me some positive benefits, the downsides and the dangers so outweigh any positive benefits that you can come up with for putting an implanted microchip that converts a person into a number that I can think of no reason ever for that to go forward. That's a technology society just needs to say, we don't go there, we don't do that. So all of this kind of, if I can just bring you up to speed with my life. So I was doing the anti-shopper card thing, and then that led me to the RFID thing when I discovered that the shopper cards were going to be linked up with RFID and all the products. We exposed and uncovered a whole bunch of hidden uses of RFID to track and photograph and surveil shoppers. We uncovered all kinds of nasty plans to create what IBM calls the person tracking unit and secretly put RFID tags in our clothes and our shoes and then track us through doorways and museums and theaters and libraries. So we exposed all of that in Spy Chips. And that book came out in 2005 and 2006. And pretty much I've talked to people in the industry, and we've cost that industry, some say, close to $500 million. So
well, they've they've cost us a lot of sleepless nights having to put out somebody else's cigarettes. So whatever, I'm all right with that.
You got that right, absolutely. And I'm a big believer. I'm a libertarian. I'm a free market libertarian. I'm a big believer in making money. I just don't think you make money in that way. That's by hiding creepy things that people don't want in their products. That's.
Oh yeah, California. Go ahead.
I was going to say we tried to get laws passed in California. Deborah Bowen there in California was one of our biggest supporters. We tried to get laws passed to make it mandatory that you had to at least put a label on anything containing a hidden RFID tracking microchip. And you would think if they wanted to make money in a legitimate way, they would tout the benefits of their products and let you know they're there, and then you would beat a path to their door, supposedly, if it was so great. What we found, though, obviously, was that as people began to learn about this technology, they didn't want it. And so the industry spent, I don't know how much they must have spent, millions and millions of dollars fighting our bill in every state it was introduced. And as a result, in not one single state in the United States of America is there any requirement to tell you if there is a microchip hidden in the sole of your shoe or woven into the seams of your clothing that could track you as you walk through doors or go about your business.
Not yet.
So, well, that bill probably is never going to be passed at this point, because what's now happening is the infrastructure that was built up for the shopper cards to identify people, and then for all of these technologies in the environment to identify people have now just leapt onto the newest version of RFID, which is your cell phone. So our concern back in 2003, 4, and 5 was that you would be walking around with a tracking device in your shoe. Now there's no need for a tracking device in your shoe because you've got one in your hand. And it's really the same exact technology. You're transmitting a unique ID number using radio frequency waves. The difference is that this is when you actually pay for the privilege to carry around, as opposed to them needing to hide it on you.
Well, if they followed and enforced the Fourth Amendment, it wouldn't be a problem, because you shouldn't be able to cast these massive dragnets across a wide swath of people indiscriminately and save all their information to be used against them at a later time.
Only for government, though, Brian, because this is where it's really interesting, because the private sector is not bound by any constitutional requirement. So the private sector can violate your Fourth Amendment rights all they want. If in the private sector, if somebody wants to surveil and spy on you, if I wanted to build a tower near your home and aim my camera through your window, I could do that. That's the part that is so disturbing. I couldn't do that if I were local law enforcement, but if I was just your neighbor, I actually would be able to do that. Now, you could probably bring, some kind of a harassment suit against me, but if I were a corporation doing something similar by simply snagging all of your internet traffic, or by, making some kind of a, quote, deal with you, through which I then funnel out all kinds of stuff about you, that's not a violation of the Constitution.
Oh, yeah.
In some cases, it might be a violation of law. Let me give you one example. The next time you go to install an app, do you have a smartphone?
I don't want to answer that. I don't want to answer this, Catherine. I think you're gonna browbeat me. I think I have no winning answer on this. Yes, I have a smartphone. It's an Android. I do.
You can take the fifth if you want. You do have that constitutional
right.
Do I?
Right, I thought I'd be detained indefinitely.
For a while.
Okay.
Let me tell you why I got rid of my Android smartphone. First of all, because my husband never hacked it and stuck Linux on it, which was the first thing that I wanted. But the second reason I got rid of it was because every single app I wanted to install, and I mean every single one, when I took the time to actually read the terms and conditions, they were so horrifying that I could not install any apps on my phone. And so it basically was a phone and a camera. And I thought, well, heck, I may as well just carry a little phone and a camera if that's all it's going to be, because it was useless. So let me give you some examples of some of these apps. I just heard from a radio listener. I do a daily radio show at kmashow.com. And one of my radio listeners was telling me about an app that she wanted to install, something simple. I don't even know what it was. It was something really, whatever. And when she looked at it, it gave, in the terms and conditions, had she clicked I agree to install it, she would have agreed to allow them to remotely turn the microphone on to her phone at any time, day or night, that they felt like it. I'm not making this up. She sent me the agreement. And not only that, but even things like Angry Birds and, pick your game, pick your thing. Read the terms and conditions. I tried to do one because all I wanted to do was record a quick radio interview on my smartphone and then play it on my show. Mm-hmm. In order to get a recording app, there was like 10 different ones available at wherever I was going to get it. Every single one of them gave themselves the right in the terms and conditions to download my entire address book. Now, why do they need to download my address book? To give me an app so that I can simply turn on the recording feature of my own phone. So this is the kind of stuff that when you talk about the Fourth Amendment, the government couldn't do that, and these companies really shouldn't be able to do that. But if you click I agree, you agree. And now let me bring this full circle, because the other thing that I'm working on nowadays, I went from kind of shopper cards to RFID to internet-based stuff. Because what I really began to realize is that it's less even the portals through which the data is being collected than it is the voracious appetite of the spider in the middle of this big web that we've created. And right now, the voracious spider at the center of that web is Google. So Google right now has the largest dossier of personal information on individuals ever collected in the history of humanity. They know more about you than the FBI, the NSA, the CIA, the IRS combined. They know more than your mother knows about you. Because what Google has hit on, and this is sheer genius, Google has hit on the ultimate market research tool. See, I used to be a market researcher years ago while I was a marketing major. And I was told, I remember in the 1980s, one of my professors saying, the hardest thing you'll ever do is conduct real market research and get true answers from people, because they don't want to tell you personal stuff. And, you can do focus groups and phone call surveys, but you're never really going to get to the real core of what people think. Well, if you wanted to do that, what better way than to create a nice, friendly, multicolored, happy little window and put a little box in the middle and say, basically, come here, tell me exactly what's on your mind, and I'll answer all your questions. So what the key thing to understand, Google is not a search engine. Google is not your best friend. Google's not your mom. They don't owe you answers about anything. Google is a brilliant market research firm that has figured out the ultimate way to get you to tell them everything about yourself that you would never tell anybody else. So, think about it. If I called you up, Brian, and I said, hey, Brian, are you married? Do you have any issues? Are you gay? Are you got any STDs? Got any health issues? Thinking about bankruptcy, foreclosure? How's your income? You like your job? You go away. Go to hell. Basically, you're not going to answer that from some random stranger. But yet, when you think the blinds are drawn and the door is shut and you're in the privacy of your own office or your bedroom or your home, we all log on to these search engines and we type all that stuff in. Bankruptcy attorney, foreclosure advice, marital counseling, drug abuse counseling, tell me about the side effects of overdoses of heroin. I mean, we're typing all this stuff in there and revealing things that you would never tell a market researcher on the phone. So once you understand that your relationship with these companies is not that they are the answer man, they're not. They've figured out how to become the answer man because they've got a different agenda, and the different agenda is to say to you, come to me 5, 10, 20 times a day and tell me what's really on your mind. Then when that wasn't enough, and here's where this really gets scary. So when that wasn't enough, because that's a one-way conversation, right? It's just you in the window. Then they wanted to be able to eavesdrop on the kinds of things that you talk about with other people. But they can't really do that, or at least they couldn't really do that then. So they hit on a brilliant way to do that also. And that was to offer you a place where you could converse with other people that was completely bugged. So what I'm referring to here is a completely bugged environment where every word you speak is observed and recorded and put into your database entry held by Google. And that place is Gmail. Your email account is not there so that you can conveniently write email to your friends. They are not your mom. They have no reason to give you free email. The reason they're giving you email is because they are providing you with the perfect bugged environment to observe your interactions with other people and to be able to capture the sorts of things that you tell other people in confidence. So if you're writing to your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your bookie, your doctor, your attorney, your accountant, all of that gets captured, every last word of it. And that is the reason why Gmail exists. That is the sole reason why it's there. We're coming out with private email at startmail.com. And I was at the Liberty Forum down in Nashua, New Hampshire, a couple months ago, and I was talking about StartMail. Private email, totally encrypted. We don't watch what you do, but you're going to have to pay for it. You're already paying Google. The equivalent of about $5 to $10 a month is about what it costs to run an email account, and they are giving you the $5 to $10 thing for free, quote unquote, in exchange for letting them watch everything. So as I was talking about, we're coming out with StartMail, startmail.com. And it's not going to be free. And I had somebody say, well, Katherine, why would I want to get StartMail if Gmail is free? And by the way, I shouldn't pick on Gmail. Let me throw Yahoo in there too, because they're all the same.
You could, and that's the thing with it could be Verizon or Sprint,
well,
it could be AT&T, it could be Google, it could be.
Well, no, that's
Yahoo.
a different thing. That's an NSA ISP thing, which is separate. This is just email. So Gmail, Yahoo, Outlook to some extent, although less so, but it's still not good. But basically, those quote unquote free services are there not to give you free email. They're there to watch you. And so my example was, here we are in this great Sheraton hotel with this conference, and everybody at this conference is paying between $100 and $200 a night for a hotel room in this hotel. And that why should you have to do that? Well, what if I moved next door and set up the free hotel, and all the rooms in my hotel are free? There's just one catch. I'm a pornographer, and I've rigged cameras watching all of the showers and the toilets and the beds, and I've also tapped all the phones. But it's free. Go ahead, stay there. In fact, I want you to stay there. In fact, let me roll out the red carpet to get as many people as possible to stay in my free hotel room. And what you should say to me is not, oh, great, Katherine, let me sign up. What you should say is run screaming and say, I'd much rather pay $100 a night for a real hotel. When I shut the door, I know that nobody's in there with me. So that model, and I think that analogy is the way that people really need to understand what these free email accounts are and what free search engines are, is they are designed not to help you, but they are designed to lure you in. They are not the product. You are the product, and they are simply the bait to lure you in, to let them observe you, because that's how they make their money.
That seems so illegal.
So once you understand that, you'll never again want to use a Gmail or Yahoo account, because it's sickening to recognize that the whole purpose of that existing is so they can see what you write. Talk about the catbird seat. Think about it. Pick anybody in this country. Pick a person. Pick somebody. Angelina Jolie.
Oh, I was going to say Eric Holder, because he's one of my favorite people out there right now. Eric Holder.
All right, well, I'm going to pick Angelina Jolie just because I'm going to.
She's cuter.
So she's also kind of private, right? If I'm Google, even if Angelina Jolie is too smart to have a Gmail or a Yahoo account of her own, I'm betting that her accountant, her doctor, somebody in her life has a Gmail or a Yahoo account. And as a result, every email she has ever written to them is going into the Google or Yahoo database under the Angelina Jolie account.
And catch them that way.
So that's the catbird seat, because when you're sitting in that catbird seat, when email is used for so much communication, then simply having access, being Google or being Yahoo, lets you know the most intimate and extraordinarily detailed information about people's lives. You'll know when somebody's going out of town. You'll know when they're hiring a babysitter. You'll know the babysitter's name. You'll know the phone number that they're going to be at while they're out of town. You'll know the time of their next meeting. You'll know what they're having for dinner. You'll know everything.
Yeah. I know. That's
what
creeps me out.
From it, but here's what we're going to do to change it.
Okay.
Because when the light bulb actually goes on, and it either hits you or it doesn't. When it fully hits you, you can't go back. I know, I remember, because it happened to me in 2009 when it fully hit me. I was like burying my head in the sand. I didn't want to know about Google because I use Google every day all the time. I didn't want to not use Google. I wanted to keep using it. I was like a drug addict. I was like, don't tell me about the side effects. I don't want to know. I want to keep using. I'm going to mainline Google. Shut up. I don't want to hear it. When I finally absorbed it and it finally hit me what Google was and what my relationship was with them and how abusive it was, at that point, I was so ready to no longer use Google that I thought I was just going to have to get off the internet completely and find a new line of work. I mean, that's how serious I was. And instead of doing that, I combed the globe and I found this little company in the Netherlands called Ixquick, IXQUICK.
That's right. I was using it before the name change. That's right.
That's right. So 2009, when Ixquick was there, they were only serving like 100,000 searches a day. It was a little company. And I had him on my radio show, and I said, thank goodness, where have you been all my life? Because I can use Ixquick instead of Google. Hooray, and you guys aren't tracking me. Long story short, I wound up becoming their VP of marketing and doing all kinds of stuff with them. And together, we developed StartPage, which is the search engine that searches Google for you. So we have created at startpage.com the portal to Google results. We're a middleman between you and Google. And we're like the most private company on God's green earth. It's extraordinary. I love the people I work with, and I love the philosophy under this company. That when you go to Start Page and you punch in your search, we take your search, we submit it to Google for you. We get Google results. We strip out all their tracking cookies and other garbage. We serve them to you cleanly, and then we delete all records of your visit. So we don't store your IP address. We don't make a record of your searches. We know nothing about you. If we got served with a subpoena, first of all, we're not under U.S. jurisdiction. So if we got a FISA court or a Patriot Act or an FBI request, we'd say fly a kite. We're Dutch. We don't care. And by the way, I'm normally like a true blue American gal, buy American. Not here, not when it comes to privacy, because the NSA has its finger in every
you see
pie.
Edward Snowden in Russia, so I mean, you got to go where you got to go. I get it.
I'm telling you, that's right. So one of the things about the Dutch, which is kind of cool, is say what you will about it, but Amsterdam and they've got the red light district, they've got legalized marijuana cafes, they've got prostitution. They're a country. Let me just put it this way: that understands the need for confidentiality and privacy as a cultural value. And the people that I work with, they're actually really good, solid family people. They're not into any of that stuff, but they do have that Dutch culture that is so fundamentally grounded in the idea that you do not mess in other people's business. And so we are third-party certified. We have an extensive certification process and audit that we go through. I think it's every year. It takes like 6 months. It's like we're always doing it. With Europris, which is the big European privacy certifying authority, also a Dutch certifying authority called Certified Secure, goes over us with a fine-tooth comb. We are absolutely just an incredible company, and we're now up to over I think we're near 4.5 million searches a day.
Wow.
Which is up from 100,000. So the time is right for all of this, and so I made the switch to Start Page. It's my home page. I added it to my browser. I never go to Google. In fact, going to Google, if I even see Google on somebody else's screen, I get like the cold chills. Like I never search Google. I never even land on their page because they give you cookies. The second you get on their page, they're infecting you. They're sticking things on you. They're sticking tracking devices on you. They're infecting you. So I don't even go there. I stay away from them. I use Start Page to search Google. If I don't want Google results, I use XQuick because XQuick still returns results from everybody but Google. It's all consolidated.
Oh, okay.
And then we said, well, now the real privacy problem that still remains is this horrible email problem. And there is no way that you can write email from point A to point B and have it be completely private and encrypted and have the whole process be seamless using state-of-the-art technology. So we tried to find it. We couldn't find it, so we built it. 3 years ago, we decided to start trying to build Start Mail. We were going to add it onto Squirrel Mail and just kind of add some privacy features, and that didn't, we realized that was not going to be secure enough. So we started back at the zeros and ones, and we built this thing from the ground up. And it is the coolest thing, Brian, I've ever seen. It is amazing. Start Mail is so encrypted and so private that even we cannot read your email.
Does it
So
only function? Does it only function from a Start Mail to a Start Mail, or does it find a way to make it safe to a Yahoo or to a Gmail?
What's extra cool about Start Mail is that if I'm on Start Mail and you are on Start Mail,
right,
and I pull up a compose window, let me answer that first, and then I'll tell you what happens if you're not on Start Mail.
Sure.
So if I pull up a compose window and I type in, Brian, and it says there's a little checkbox. All you have to do is just hit the checkbox that says encrypt this message. And then it will automatically, without me having to do anything, get your public key, your public PGP encryption key, which you've entered into the Start Mail system, which you probably created from within a Start Mail window easily by just typing it. Then it automatically knows that you have that key, that I have my key, and it automatically does all the encryption for us. And not only does it do the encryption, but we just sent out a press release that we're the first search engine to introduce something called perfect forward secrecy, search engine and email. That what that does is it doesn't encrypt all of my messages to you using the same key protocol, but it creates a new one every single time. So even if the NSA were able to take multiple supercomputers and spend 10 years and decrypt one of our messages.
Yeah, if they catch you yesterday, it doesn't work tomorrow.
That's right. But by the way, all other email programs that are SSL encrypted do work that way. So if you break the key once, you've got millions of messages that you can now read.
And if that's
and
the
that's
case,
a serious security problem.
And if that's the case,
we
you
didn't
want to
even
just...
know that was a problem till Edward Snowden.
Oh.
He's the one who tipped us off that that's a problem. And so for that reason, we worked around the clock to add perfect forward secrecy onto Start Mail, so that what we learned from Edward Snowden we could put into immediate effect. So that answers, if I'm going to write to you from my Start Mail to your Start Mail, totally encrypted. That means if you've got Verizon or Comcast or AT&T, whoever is your ISP, they cannot read your email. If the NSA, even if they're sitting there like in outside your house with a van capturing what's moving down the physical fiber cable, they can't read it because it's encrypted. So nobody can read your mail. And in fact, if you lose your key and you come to us and go, hey, I forgot my password, we're going to say, I'm really sorry. You just lost your account, because we don't have it. We don't want to have it. That way, if somebody comes to us with a gun to our head and says, hey, give me Brian's password, we can have not only plausible deniability, but legitimate deniability and say, we're not law enforcement. It's not our business to be telling you what Brian's up to. You want his password, you go get it out of him. We don't have it. So, obviously we don't want illegal activities, and those are all forbidden, and if we find out you're doing it, we will most definitely shut down your account, no question. But we're also not in the business of being law enforcement ourselves. We're not going to sit around and, try to get everybody's codes and pass them on, because that's totally against everything I believe in. So to answer your other question, if you've got Start Mail and I've got Gmail, God forbid, and you want to write to me, the problem, if you write me a straight unencrypted email, Google will now create a new Brian account and pop your email into your account, even though you're on Start Mail and you never agreed to Google's terms and conditions for Gmail. The mere act of writing to somebody with a Gmail account, Google construes as you agreeing to their terms and conditions, and it means that you agree to let them read your email, even if you don't have an account. So what you do in that case, what we've built into Start Mail, is, well, first of all, we would want you to tell me, hey, Katherine, get a Start Mail account, because really, if we're going to be writing back and forth and we care about freedom, you should just get off of Gmail anyway.
Right.
So we're hoping that this is going to go viral, that people will tell other people, yo, wake up, smell the coffee, get out of there. But if they don't, let's say it's your mother-in-law, and she's never going to leave her Gmail account or her AOL account, right? So what you can do is you pop in a question. We have a question response. So let's say it's your mother-in-law. You would say, what's your middle name? You just put a question in there, and then she would type in, Margaret, and then that would unlock the email. But it would unlock it in a special place on our server that's encrypted, so Gmail would never see it. So that's it's beautiful. It's so beautiful.
So if people, is this service ready to rock and roll, or it's still being
beta tested?
Yeah,
it just came out. We're in internal beta right now. We just rolled out our internal beta to 100 internal beta testers, so that's our team internally. We are all kicking the tires and loving every minute of it. After the internal beta, it then goes to a second stage beta, which are all QA, quality control people that we've screened. We've had 45,000 people sign up to be beta testers.
Yeah, I think I did that. I think I did that at some point.
It's I'm on the list. So much demand for this. Well, thank you. So what will happen is after we do the QA kind of journalist level, then we'll start rolling it out in phases to the 45,000 people who signed up. And I don't know if this show is going to go out live that we're doing right now, but if people hear it as a rebroadcast, disregard what I'm about to say. But if where you're hearing this show, it's August 2nd, 2013?
Yes.
Then what you can do, is it the 3rd?
No, it's the 2nd. You're right.
It's the 2nd. So if it's August the 2nd, 2013, there still is about a day left that you can sign up as a beta tester. If you go to startmail.com, you can watch a little video. I put that together. But down at the bottom, there's a place where you can put in your email address, and you can check the box that says beta test. And in the little box above it, because we just had an executive meeting yesterday where we decided to close the beta. And once we close the beta, it's going to be no one who's not on the beta will be able to get an account until next year. So if you want to get an account, do it like within the next 24 hours because we're closing it. We already have more people than we ever thought we would get, and more than, frankly, we even really need for a beta. But here's the deal. If you go there and you say you heard me on Brian's show and mention my name, Katherine or Katherine Albrecht, then I'll slip you in under the wire, assuming that little beta box is still there. And what that means is that as we begin rolling out over the next couple of months, you will get a free kick the tires. We would love to get your feedback. You don't have to give us feedback. And then you will have first dibs at getting an actual paid account when they come out next year. I say dibs on paid accounts because there's a good chance that we will have to ration those. If we get 1 million people overnight wanting accounts, there's no way we can accommodate them all. So the people who have actually signed up as beta testers will get their free 3 months and then a priority opportunity to get, first of all, dibs at like the best email addresses. So you could be Happy Girl instead of Happy Girl 9982. But also so that you can actually get an account, because I have a feeling we're going to have to ration them as we go forward. So that's startmail.com. Click the beta test box, say you heard me on Brian's show, and my name's Katherine, and slip in under the wire before they close it this weekend.
Katherine, I love it because as a libertarian-minded person myself, you think that the free market is going to create the answers to all of these problems. If you don't want to be snooped on, there will be a new cable company that won't do it. There will be a new email company that won't do it. Waiting for it. And I guess you don't have to wait. You can use StartPage as your search engine. You can check out startmail.com. Take a look at StartMail.
Yeah, exactly. And, if this works, and, we're taking a big gamble because I'm the big free market libertarian on our team. They're all Dutch, so they're not like, they're like Ron Paul, who's that? So I'm always the one, go free market, go libertarian. But I have really made the case, and not only do I market StartPage to the public, but I'm trying to market the public to the company, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I've made the case that liberty lovers across America will pony up money and purchase this product, because I can't even tell you how much time and money we have spent to create it. It's horrifying. It's not cheap to create completely private email. Just take my word on it. So I've reassured them at every turn, people will support this project. And if they do, it's not just that you're supporting us. Obviously, you're just doing a smart thing for yourself, which is what the way free market capitalism works. Everybody wins. Everybody gets their needs met. Everybody feels like they're getting the better end of the bargain. But if it works, then we really want to move forward and create chat. We know from thanks to Edward Snowden and the PRISM release information that Skype is watching everything you write, that AOL Instant Messenger and Yahoo Instant Messenger are watching everything you write, that all your text messages are being monitored and copied and sent directly to the federal government. So we want to create completely private chat. We want to create completely private DNS services, and the list goes on and on and on. A completely private alternative to Facebook, a completely private, fill in the blank. All of this stuff that's out there. You know how libertarians, we always say it's either free as in freedom or free as in beer? You know that phrase?
Hold on, wait, is that free as in freedom or free as in beer?
Right, there's two kinds of free, right? Free as in freedom is in liberty, or free as in beer is in like no cost.
Okay, all right.
We've got a third one. Okay, yeah, it's well, if you've heard it, you'll know what I mean. We have kind of a third one, free as in Google, which essentially means
get what you pay
that
for.
It's not really free. It's free because they're watching you. It's free because the thing that they give you is a vehicle through which they observe you. It's almost like they give you a free camera that's always aimed at you.
Well, it's a drug dealer a drug dealer that gets you high once, and he knows he's ruined your life, and you're going to keep handing him money for the rest of that.
Yeah, exactly, and he owns you.
Oh,
he owns you or pawns you, as the case may be. So in that sense, all of these free services. I was talking about the apps, right? This little recording thing I wanted just to record some audio. That wasn't free. They wanted to be able to get my entire contact list. That's not free. Had there been an app that I could have just paid like $3 and gone, yo, dude, just give me the ability to record something without being a freak, I would have done it. Our problem is we've got this model, well, I don't know how old you are, but when I was growing up, there was nothing but broadcast TV full of ads, and that's what you watched. And it was free because you were a captive audience to watch the commercials. Well, that's the model that we've now adopted on the Internet. We've got all of these free, quote-unquote, services, and every single one of them, without exception, exists in order to capture the information that flows through it. So they're more than happy to give you, like MailChimp is one that had me really mad the other day. MailChimp is happy to to give you a free mailing list software. So you've got 500,000 people on your mailing list. MailChimp will happily accommodate that and send it all out to you nice and clean and not charge you one thin dime. But then you go on their website and you see what they do with that information, and it just curls your toes. It's horrifying. So that model of the Internet needs to have, growing up next to it and around it, a different model of the Internet, and that is a paid private model. And the reason it's got to be paid is because you are paying. None of it is free. There's no free lunch. Somebody has to pay the money for Skype. You know, who runs the servers at Skype? Why do you think they do it? Just because they love you? Just because, you know, and I keep coming back to it. They're not your mom. The next time somebody wants to give you something free and it's not your mom, you got to stop and go, why are you doing it? You know, if it's your mom, you go, thanks for the sandwich. But if it's MailChimp, you go, what's the catch? You're not my mom. Why are you giving me free, you know, mailing list software? And then read the fine print and go into the trade magazines and look up MailChimp, you know, marketing, data. Look it all up and you'll see. And, you know, I don't mean to single them out. They're just one of cajillions of these. Even Angry Birds. What the heck, man? Go online, start page it. Look up Angry Birds, data collection, you know, privacy policy, and you'll be horrified to see even something as simple as that everybody was addicted to. What it was really about was snagging your contact list.
Well,
who would have thought it?
I think you're onto it, being optimistic at this point, because it sure seems like the tide is turning. It's a slow process. It feels like it needs to happen yesterday, and it can be frustrating for sure. A lot of people that we talk to and that are affiliated with our content, it's just kind of like they reach that point where they just get frustrated. They get tired. They get burned out, and I think baby steps. That's really the only way to do it, is wake up one person at a time. And it takes people to stand up and get pointed at and laughed at and ridiculed or minimized or marginalized. And here you are several years later, and you seem prophetic. You know, you do, a lot of people do.
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? And I have to really thank Edward Snowden. You know, I mean, he really... I had people calling me up who, from like 2003 and 2004, were like, Katherine, you're paranoid, you're a lunatic, you know, get with the program, just get a smartphone, just do this and that. Well, not in 2003, but, you know, people, get a shopper card, get over it. And I had people call me up and apologize. I had lots of people call me and apologize. Everybody I've seen who's known me for 10 years has said, you know, I always thought you were kind of right, but I never knew how right you were. Thank you for all you've done. You know, so thank you, Edward Snowden. He's actually my hero. He's in my signature. My Edward Snowden quote, my favorite quote from him is this one. He says, I had been looking for leadership, and then I had been looking for leaders, and then I realized that leadership is being the first to act. And I thought, man, yeah, that guy. You know, and what a shame that he's not here in our country. You know, he should be elected. He should be running our country, not running away from our country.
Being charged with treason and espionage, and now finding asylum over in Russia. I mean, of all places to go, you got to get to Russia.
And, you know, here's a man who will never again see the Grand Canyon or the Golden Gate Bridge, or, you know, it just, the Manhattan skyline. Like, he loves this country, and he'll never be able to see it again. And the worst part about it is that the criminals who he exposed were smart enough to figure out how to turn it around and make him look like the criminal in order to deflect attention from their own criminality. You know, it should never be a crime to expose a crime.
Yeah, it's newspeak.
An act of heroism and rewarded as such.
It's newspeak, and I know we're going into a couple minutes overtime. I have the ability. I know you're battling a sore throat. I want to be quick, but if I can do something that I did with journalist Ben Swan, who was on a couple weeks ago, maybe just do a lightning round real quick, because I feel like we haven't scratched the surface of all the stuff I want to talk with you about, but I do need to let you get going in a couple minutes here. Are you down for a quick lightning round? Because Snowden was up there on one of the things I wanted a little bit more elaboration on.
Sure. Let's see if we can do it in a. I'll try to have one sentence answers for you.
Yeah, and you know how I did it? I said answer it in a Twitter response. So 140 characters or less. But let me ask you this before we get to our Twitter one, because this one just hit me. I might need a couple sentences out of you on this. I just got in the mail that the advanced smart meters are going to be installed on my condominium building here in Los Angeles. What do I need to know? Is there a way to fight it? What danger is there? Should I care?
Yeah, smart meters are a trip, aren't they? Smart meters are more about laying the groundwork for something very, very nasty that's coming in the future. I know a lot of people claim to be electromagnetically sensitive and be having issues with them. I'm not quite sure I'm on board with that, because we're surrounded by so much of this EMF garbage anyway that, you know, a smart meter may not be adding that much. But there is a website. It's called lessemf.com, where you can actually buy shielding fabric. And I don't have any kind of relationship with them. I just noticed them and thought they were cool. And if that smart meter is next to your bedroom, you may actually want to shield it so that you're not getting exposed to it.
Okay.
As far as the privacy implications go, yeah, it's a big deal, because they can tell if you're on vacation, if you have guests over. And down the road, what the smart meter is designed to do is to pick up emanations from all of the RFID tags. Remember, I told you that the marketers and the retailers, what they want to do is know what you do in your home.
Right.
Yeah, that the blind spot in your home is going to be filled in with the smart meter, but it's not happening yet.
Okay. All right. Well, let me bounce to Bradley Manning. We can go to hashtags now, because your Edward Snowden quote and your analogy, your very good analogy about seeing a cigarette smoldering and, that's someone else's problem. Bradley Manning did do something involved with WikiLeaks. He just got sentenced. He avoided the most serious charge, but he's going to be going away for a long time, let's face it. How do you sum up the whole Bradley Manning situation? I
feel kind of sorry for him. I actually don't think Bradley Manning was the sharpest knife in the drawer, to be honest. You know, I don't think he realized the enormity of what he was playing around with. I think Edward Snowden absolutely did. I think he's one of the sharpest knives, not only in the drawer but on the planet. Bradley Manning, like I said, I just feel kind of sorry for him. I think he was used. I think Julian Assange used Bradley Manning in a way that maybe wasn't all that fabulous, and I don't know. My feelings about WikiLeaks are a little bit different than my feelings about Edward Snowden, and that's like a topic for a whole other show. But I do wish that Bradley Manning had not gotten in as deep as he did, and that he were a free man now.
Do you see a cashless society on the way? If so, when, and what role, if any, do you see currencies like the digital currency Bitcoin playing?
Yeah, we will have a cashless society. The libertarian in me loves Bitcoin. The Christian in me despises it, and I will not use it. When I say the Christian in me, I am a born-again, Bible-believing, evangelical, fundamentalist, you name it, Christian, but I'm also a free market libertarian. And what I like to say about libertarians is, we kind of equally upset the left and the right. You add Christian into the mix, and smoke comes out of people's ears, because I'm not usually what people think of when they when they think of that demographic. As far as I'm concerned, the Bible, particularly the parts about the mark of the beast, are absolutely literal, and they're absolutely coming to pass before our very eyes. And it is an extraordinary and amazing and sobering thing to watch that happen. So not only are we moving to cashlessness, we're moving to a one-world government. We're ultimately moving to a one-world religion, which will be evil, and we are moving towards a number for every person on the globe to buy and sell that will be in your hand or your forehead, and the mark of the beast is coming.
And you remind me of my uncle, who's a Baptist pastor down in Texas, formerly of Ohio, and he's been a hardcore Republican his whole life. And this whole last election, I've really been leaning on him, saying, buddy, Bruce, you need to disconnect from the two-party monster that has brainwashed you for 5+ decades. Go libertarian, pal. You're on board. You just don't know it yet. You're there. You just don't realize it. Let me ask you this.
And let me just say something about this two-party thing.
Sure.
You know that the NSA surveillance was first exposed under Bush, and then Obama campaigned on a platform to put an end to it and expanded it after he got elected. So when it comes to privacy, Fourth Amendment issues, the Republicans and the Democrats have plainly proven that they are absolutely our enemies when it comes to that stuff, and they need to be treated as such.
Patriot Act, NSA, National Defense Authorization. I mean, it's all the same swath of overreaching civil liberty restricting garbage. Let me ask you this. With the IRS denial of the whole IRS scandal that's breaking, where patriot groups and right-wing groups were denied things, attacked because of their personal beliefs, using an arm of government as a weapon. Do you see the Obamacare data hub taking over 1/6 of the economy with the Affordable Care Act, connecting with all of the tracking devices to see what you're buying at the store, whether it's alcohol or fatty junk foods, cigarettes?
I'm so glad you brought this up. Yeah. Once they figured out how to put the barcode on all the products and then how to put the barcode on all the people, I didn't get to finish that thought. the next step was, now what can we do with this gold mine of data? And I'll tell you, the biggest gold mine of data that they have collected from that is the ability to know your health on the basis of the food that you purchase. So what I think is coming, and I have lots of evidence for why I think this that I can't go into right now, but what I think is coming is that they're going to take these detailed health and nutritional profiles that they've created on Americans, they're going to link it up with Obamacare, and down the road you're actually going to see restrictions on what food you can purchase on the basis of your health status. So we're already seeing the frequent shopper cards. I said this back in 1999, that these frequent shopper cards are they're food registration cards. And the same reason, you know, why don't you register your guns? Because you know that if you register your guns, when the rubber hits the road, then they're going to use those registration rolls to come and confiscate them. And the same is also true with food. When you register your food and you create a gigantic global registry of what food goes where, then that becomes a political football to be used to try to manipulate people's health, which they're talking about doing right now in England. It becomes a tool to co-opt and put pressure on people like they do with Safeway employees. You actually pay more for your health care as a Safeway employee if you do not let them monitor all of your purchases and convert them into a nutritional health profile at Safeway. Yeah, so
I hadn't heard that one before.
Really scare you.
Wow.
And yeah, ask any Safeway employee. It's true. Now Venezuela, which, you know, Hugo Chavez was in charge of Venezuela. What a nightmare. Because he instituted price controls. And, you know, repeat after me, children, price controls always lead to shortages. They do. So when he put price controls on the food, it led to immense shortages of food. And in fact, one of the stories in the last couple of months in Venezuela, they didn't have any toilet paper, not one stitch of toilet paper in the whole country. People were using like notebook paper and magazines and leaves. That's how bad it was. And that's because they put price controls on the toilet paper. So there was a proposal that eventually people shouted down, but there was a proposal to use the frequent shopper cards in the stores in Venezuela to ration food. So the idea was, you know, hey, you're hoarding food. So now what you're going to have to do is scan your government-issued frequent shopper ID card in the grocery store, and when you buy your gallon of milk, and then you drive, you know, a couple of miles down the street 3 days later to try to buy another gallon of milk, the system will say, no, I'm sorry, sir, you cannot buy this milk. And that was actually in the point of being implemented. Those frequent shopper cards are not just first world anymore. They're in every country on the globe. Well, maybe not North Korea, but they're in Yemen, they're in Thailand, they're in Jamaica, they're in Sweden, they're in every country on the globe.
Well, I shop at Trader Joe's.
Register.
I shop at a place, Trader Joe's, where they don't have any of the cards, and I appreciate it. And every card that I used to have.
South Pasadena.
Oh yeah. I over in Culver City. But I like it. I like the no cards, and every time I did have to go to a Ralph's or an Albertsons or a XYZ, I would do two things. I would either ask, oh, I forgot it, can you use the store card? Oh, sure. But now they're not letting them use it, so I had fake ones with fake names, and I just throw them out, and I have to always get the new ones. I just finally stopped shopping there because I didn't like it. But I mean, we talk about this stuff, not just first world, third world. Talk about 2,000 years ago, from Revelation 13. Verse 16 and 17, and he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. I mean, you know, it's just creepy to think, oh, well, if I don't show you my papers, I cannot get things. That's very creepy.
And now you can't, you know, this idea that you will not be able to buy food. And, you know, you're in California, Coachella, the Coachella Festival.
That's right, the wristbands. Tell us about it.
Hop onto YouTube and look at the most creepy video ever filmed, which is of a whole bunch of Coachella goers, like completely obliviously, taking their right hands and pressing them against a reader that had a circle with a picture of a right hand in the reader with their RFID tags, which is the identical technology in their wristband that could be implanted into their hand. And there they are, beep, 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 and they're all walking through this reader device.
Well, my brother said that he was at a Kroger over in Ohio, and he noticed that the pharmacy technicians were swiping barcode stickers that were on their hand. And he said, what are you doing? And they said, well, he said, are you comfortable with it? He said, well, it's much easier than entering my password every time. So they had actually either made a piece of jewelry or put a sticker on their hand. They put the barcode on their hand to literally swipe. Oh, this is easier. And it's just, we can't be the only ones that think it's creepy. But on the flip side of what you were saying about causing rationed food and whatnot, the other concept of what the IRS taught us is that if you're on the wrong side of a political party, you might be denied access to health care. You need a replacement liver, you need a replacement XYZ. Well, are you one of our people based on your Facebook posts, or are you one of the opposition? Well, I'm sorry, you're at the bottom of the list. I mean, that's beyond creepy.
And you know, the thing is, even if you post like really carefully on Facebook, this is why your Gmail is so important, because that's where they will go, you know, to really know what you're really about. Are you having an affair? Did you write to the person you're having an affair with through your Gmail account? Then we've got blackmail opportunities against you now. You know, it's once you realize, and I really hope your listeners have actually internalized what I'm trying to say about these email accounts. Once you realize it, you will never again feel the same way about writing from your own account, and you'll never again feel the same way about writing to somebody else with one of those accounts. It's you know, when I first started talking about this, my doctor, I'm actually a breast cancer survivor. We could do a whole hour on charlatan breast cancer treatments and conventional treatment and everything else, but I had a pretty rough bout with a really dangerous form of breast cancer and had lots of medical records, and my doctor wanted me to send her my latest blood test. And so I said, oh, sure, and I wrote down her email address, and it was Dr. blah, blah, blah at gmail.com. And I said, you're kidding, right? There's no way. You want me to attach my medical records and send them to Dr. So-and-so at gmail.com? Do you know what that means? She's like, no. And I said, well, if I do that, then Google is going to take that PDF, and they're going to copy it, and they're going to read it, and they're going to get all the keywords out of it, and they're going to know my date of birth. They're going to know my insurance company. They're going to know my insurance account number. They're going to know my Social Security number. They're going to know all of my medical conditions. They're going to know my doctor's name. It was in addition to all the actual blood test results. They're going to know that I have breast cancer. And believe me, they care. It is not just an issue of it's just kind of randomly stored there. No, that's the reason why it exists. So they're waiting like spiders waiting to pounce on a bug that lands in their web. And the minute they got that, they would go to town. And so here's the thing. If people are hearing this and going, oh, no, I sent my tax return, to my accountant at his Yahoo account, what do I do? The good news is that if you can wait 9 months, just think of it as like having a baby. If you can stay off of those accounts for 9 months, you'll go into a separate part of their database, which is a dormant place. So they've got like their active information of the active users, and then after 9 months of not seeing you, they drop you into a dormant spot. They can still get it back if they want to later. Unfortunately, you can never delete it. Even if you ask them to, they won't. But you at least won't be like active at the front of their mind on the radar screen.
Once again, it's like a detox, a digital detox. If you can just stay off of the smack for a while, you got a chance.
It is. And let me tell you, I tell people to take the 1 week start page challenge. Like, I know people are listening to us right now and they're like, well, I'd like to switch to start page, but like tomorrow you're going to forget about this interview, and then you're going to look at Google, and it's going to be your old familiar Google that you've used for 10 years, and then you're just going to use it again. So what I tell people, go to startpage.com, make it your homepage. Like if Google's your homepage, there's a little link right under the search box that says add to Internet Explorer or Firefox or add to Safari, whatever. And then there's another one that says make start page your homepage. Click it and do it. And add it to your browser. You know that little window in the upper right-hand corner on your browser with the pull-down menu? You can put it up there instead of Google so that you can search anytime.
Can I tell you something that happened with that?
Do both of those steps. Huh?
Let me tell you something that happened. I did an update on my computer, and Firefox hit reset, taking start page away. It wasn't even in my list in that little box.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
I
you
had
to
to
add
go
it in manually.
Yep.
Google pays to be in that list because it's so valuable to them.
Absolutely.
They pay to be in the list, and we don't. We can't afford to. I mean, that's millions of dollars. So what you do, go to startpage.com, and right under the search box where it says add to, what's your browser, Internet Explorer, Firefox?
Yeah, Firefox.
Okay, so where it says add to Firefox, just click that, follow the instructions, and then it'll be over there in the upper right-hand corner. And I would like everybody listening, if you've cared at all about anything I've said tonight, talking through this horrible cold, which I've done.
And you're a trooper. I appreciate it.
People.
I do appreciate it.
So, if you care, and if this means anything to you, and if you want to save yourself and make a vote to change the world, please take the 1-week Start Page Challenge. Add Start Page to your browser. Use it for 1 week. If at the end of the week you're not convinced that it is just as good as Google, switch back, and then at least you know. Then at least you've done your part to try. I've seen very few people ever switch back. It's really that first couple of days that's hard, and then it becomes the most natural thing in the world. It's just a habit. That's all it is. It's a habit. And we have to change our habits and have habits that promote the good stuff.
Well, in our last minute here, Katherine, why don't you tell people if they want to change their habits of not listening to you, and if they want to start reading your book and listening to you on your radio shows, take a minute and tell everybody where they can find you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I do a daily radio program on GCN. I'm right after Alex Jones and right before Free Talk Live, which is a nice place to be. That's 4 to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 7 to 9 a.m. on Saturday mornings. That's all Eastern time. So for those of you in the Pacific time zone, that's 1 to 3 p.m. in the afternoon. You can find me at kmashow.com. KMA. You know who Aaron Russo was? The movie America, Freedom to Fascism?
Yeah.
Did you ever watch that movie?
Yeah,
it was Aaron Russo who told me that KMA had a different meaning, my initials. I don't know if have you ever heard that?
Oh, you're going to have to catch me up on all of the jargon from free beer to K&A.
No, I got to tell you. I think I can say this on the air. It's Kiss My Ass.
Oh, okay.
And it was Aaron Russo who told me that. It killed me. So now nobody will ever forget. It's kmashow.com, but those are just my initials. So kmashow.com is the website.
Oh, that's a good libertarian bumper sticker, too. KMA.
I like it.
Absolutely. Well, Katherine, we liked having you on the program. I seriously feel like we just scratched the surface of getting to know you. And it seems like on a weekly basis there's a new scandal, there's a new piece of technology, there's a new leak. So we'd love to invite you back on sometime in the future to continue this conversation. We appreciate the work you've been doing.
Hey, I'd love to come back. And thanks for all you do, Brian, too. I really appreciate you as well. Bye-bye.
Right. Take care, Katherine. That is Dr. Katherine Albrecht, everybody. Big fan. Just the energy of somebody that has been fighting this fight for a long time. It makes you feel 17% less crazy. Okay, maybe 18%. Anyway, special thanks to Dr. Katherine Albrecht. Another special thanks to Brandon Odell, who joined us on Strictly Browns on the Unhappy Hour Sports Show previously to this. Do us a favor, check out our homepage, thenewamericanmedia.com. All of our archived shows go on youtube.com/thenewamericanmedia. And subscribe and leave some comments on there, would you? Embed them on your Facebook page. And while you're on Facebook, search The New American Media, like our page. And on Twitter, we're at American_media_. The conversation never stops. Check out Katherine's radio shows. Check out everything we're up to. Special thanks to our producer, Chris, for helping us on this program. Appreciate it, Chris. It's been another good week. Fighting the good fight. And I appreciate each and every one of you listeners. So, if you have the opportunity in the next few days, take a breath, do a little digital detox, if you will. Put on your glasses and stare at the clouds for an hour. Did that this weekend. That was fantastic. It's amazing what that can do to hit reset on your chaotic life. So for everybody here at the TNAM Radio Network, here at thenewamericanmedia.com, signing off till next week. This is where I should insert my catchy little outro phrase that I don't have yet. To be continued. Till next time, everyone. Thank you.